Yeah.
Yeah, how come I never get to sit up there?
Okay, it is 1 o'clock, time for our regularly scheduled meeting. It is Tuesday, June 18th. Madam Clerk, do you have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor.
At this time, we'll stand for the pledge by Commissioner Nguyen and prayer after.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we offer you the actions of this day for the intentions and for the glory of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. We desire to sanctify every beat of our hearts, our every thoughts, our simplest works to Jesus Christ. Fill us with your love and strength to love each other perfectly as you love us. Father, I ask you for myself and for those whom we hold dear, the grace to fulfill perfectly your holy will, so that we may one day be united together in heaven for all eternity. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, who reigns forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
On to the approval of the minutes of the last regular meeting, which if no corrections are offered, shall stand approved. Are there any corrections there?
Just one that I talked to the city clerk about.
Okay. Noted. Okay, item 5. At this time, we'll have the public comment. This will allow anybody in the audience who is here to speak on behalf of anything that they want that's not on the agenda. So you'll have 30 minutes or 5 minutes for a 30-minute period. I don't know if you can talk that long, but yeah, so if there's any comments, we'll allow you to come up and please state your name in the mic, so for the record. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Mayor and Commissioners, item 6A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from Vicki Harshbarger with Mosaic to allow the mayor to proclaim July 1st, 2024 as Southwest Kansas One Mosaic Day in Garden City.
Mayor, I make the motion we approve the proclamation as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
And Vicki, you're here. You want to come up and say anything about your day?
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity for us to share about One Mosaic Day. As it says in the proclamation, One Mosaic Day is when our founding missions, Bethany and Martin Luther Holmes, came together to form Mosaic back in 2003. And so we celebrate it each year, but this year we decided we didn't have a big old public party at Stevens Park from 11 to 3 p.m. on July 1st. That's a Monday. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having food trucks. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary. So we're doing a blowout. We're going to have games for people to participate in. And it's just going to be a great time to have for everyone to come and be able to mingle with those we serve and those of us that do the serving. So the food trucks is going to include Spike's Cafe, and I'm going to murder this name, but Los Charros Barria, Ice Guys, and Paula's Funnel Cakes. It will also be featuring our Mosaic of at-home opportunities, of course, along with other community vendors that are partnering with us. And let's see, is there anything else? Oh, yes, and Michael Gonzalez is also going to be providing music that day. So it's going to be a big party, and we just hope everybody can come.
Okay. And I do have a proclamation here, so is that going to be read at the event, or do you want me to do that?
If you want to go ahead and read it now, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
we can do that. And if we got anybody here that wants to take a picture, we can do that afterward.
Okay.
Okay. So the proclamation, whereas the day of July 1st, 2024 has been designated as One Mosaic Day in order to celebrate the service Mosaic provides across more than 700 communities to support individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And whereas this celebration in 2024 coincides with the 25th anniversary of Mosaic serving in Southwest Kansas to enhance the lives and protect the well-being of individuals with disabilities in our local communities. And whereas Mosaic plays a vital role in our community by building a network of support that brings diverse people and organizations together in a common mission to serve the needs of people with disabilities and their families in Southwest Kansas through personalized service. And whereas the goals of this city properly gives recognition to those who directly help people with disabilities gain full access to housing, employment, and the recreational activities which help create productive and satisfying lives, and to live as independently as possible. Now therefore I, Mayor Manny Ortiz of Garden City, do hereby proclaim the day of July 1st, 2024 as Southwest Kansas One Mosaic Day in Garden City, and call upon the citizens of Garden City to observe the day with appropriate programs and activities. Furthermore, I encourage the citizens of Garden City to seek information from Mosaic about new ways of serving people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in personalized settings. Signed and sealed this 18th day of June 2024.
Thank you so much.
Mayor and Commissioners, item 6B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve requests from Jacob Gonzalez with Jax for a waiver of the noise ordinance for multiple events at 1907 East Mary Street. Event number 1, pre-party for the rodeo and Finney County Fair on July 18th, 2024 from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m., July 19th, 2024 from 1 p.m. to 12 a.m., and July 20th, 2024 from 3 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. And then the second request, the 20th anniversary celebration on July 5th, 2024 from 1 p.m. to 12 a.m., July 26th, 2024 from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., and July 27th, 2024 from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. The packet identifies that the governing body approved one-time waivers, at one point waivers to Code of Ordinances Section 6221 pertaining to levels of noise that are permitted, allowing the city manager to waive up until 11 p.m. Any requests beyond that would come to the governing body. So this item is before you. The past history, I believe without exception, but they're not ruling out that there may have been some exception in the last 16 years or so. Those have been capped by the governing body at 12 a.m.
Do I hear any discussion on this?
I do believe we have Jacob from Jax is here and probably wants to provide you some additional information.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. So this year is our 20th anniversary, so that's what our whole party is. We're wanting to celebrate being 20 years in business. For being a local restaurant, that's a huge accomplishment. So we want to start doing stuff to get more people in the community involved. So we are going to do the kickoff party for the rodeo. We're going to have Thomas Mack be the opener that day, and then we're having a local artist open for him. The reason we're wanting an extension till 1 is so there's no conflicts with everything that's going to be going on in the fairgrounds. So people have enough time to enjoy everything out there and also come out to our venue. Our goal is basically to have a little bit of entertainment for everybody, not just be a country place. So the following week we're going to do midget wrestling, something different. It's been a while since it's been done, but everything at Finney County ends around 9:30. We're hoping to start at 10, so us being able to go to 1 o'clock lets everybody enjoy their show comfortably without being rushed from one venue to the other. On that Friday, the 26th, we're going to be doing dueling pianos. That's going to be a little bit different. Again, everything from the Finney County Fair ends around 9:30, 10. So we're hoping to start at 10. And for only us to have until 11 really hurts what we can wind up bringing into the community. We're hoping people come to shop, people stay the night. We're also trying to make sure that we get some kind of transportation, so we've been reaching out to a couple of other people. So we're not having a lot of, it's gonna happen, but a lot of drinking and driving. So we're trying to stop everything that we can to prevent that. The 1 a.m. is kind of trying to meet in the middle compared to Dodge City days. So Dodge City goes till 2 in the morning. I'm hoping to go till 1 to kind of see what results will wind up. The 27th, we'll be actually having our big finale. We'll be doing the car show that morning, a cornhole tournament during the day, and then we'll actually have 2 bands that night is what's planned. I can't announce who that is just yet because I'm waiting on contracts to be finalized. But once that's said and done, we'll let you guys know. So I'm really hoping you guys can understand why we're shooting for that 1 a.m. mark instead of typically 11 o'clock.
First, congratulations on 20 years. That is a tremendous feat. My first question is the event all inside? Is it all outside?
The majority of everything's going to be outside since we're expecting a lot of people. We went and did the purchasing a tent. So we have a tent to kind of help with the sound kind of being dampened. We also do know we got to be in compliance with 103 decibels, I believe is what it is. And that's from corner to corner of the lot. So we are doing everything we can to be in compliance with all that. But if we do have a big turnout, it's only going to be good for the city because we're hoping they stay the night, come back again. We're hoping they shop, even if they don't come eat with us, as long as they're doing some sort of interaction within the community. I feel like it's a win-win for everybody. This is something I feel like has been lacking in the community at least the last couple of years since COVID. We just haven't had the entertainment aspect in the community. We definitely have a lot of retail, have a lot of restaurants, but entertainment, I think this is what the right direction that we need to start going to figure out what we can do to get more tourism into the town.
Because I know in the past you've done events and we've approved the noise ordinance, and so it's always been to 12 o'clock.
Yes.
So, I mean, are there shows actually 3 hours long, or are you just trying to give yourself a buffer time to give people, like, so everything kind of stops at midnight so then you can kind of wind everything down?
The buffer is 12:30 is what I'm shooting for. Simply, most bands is about a 90-minute, 2.5-hour set, depending on what you pay and what you book. And we're also trying to give enough people time to come from Finney County Fairgrounds over to our venue without any incidents. During the rodeo this last time, it was a long line to get in and a long line to get out. So that's what I'm hoping we'll have again, but also trying to make everyone happy because nobody wants to show up in the middle of a show in 15 minutes and it's over.
So if it was 12 o'clock, would that severely curtail your opportunity for entertainment, or?
I think it would, simply because Finney County's ending at 10. That's only giving us about a 2-hour window. And realistically, about 90 minutes once somebody gets out of the vehicle, situated, figuring out what they're wanting to do, if they want to eat, if they want to drink, if they just want to go and have a good time, it's really going to hurt us.
July 18th, is that a weekday?
That's a Thursday. So that would be the kickoff party for the rodeo. We're hoping to be done about 12 o'clock on that night. There's nothing going on with the rodeo that night, so nothing's interfering with what they're doing and what we're doing. The 19th and 20th, all we're gonna do is just have probably a boombox, a DJ outside, nothing real loud, just people being able to have background noise out there while they're playing outdoor games or just hanging out with friends.
So on the 20th, there's not really a band or any
No band,
entertainment.
no.
So on that one, if you ended at midnight, well, to me, I mean, as far as that one you wouldn't be hampering anybody's ability to enjoy. Yeah, the hard thing for me is, I mean, 1 o'clock is, I mean, if you end at 1 o'clock, then does it really end at 1 o'clock, or does it keep going? And
We're ending it at 1 o'clock, regardless of what's going on. We're trying to make sure everyone's happy so we could do more shows.
Right.
Because if this works off with a good success, I do have a few more bands booked for later this year. I just need to make sure that we're in compliance with everything that you guys are asking for. And if we need to have another meeting after all these events, figure out what we did wrong, what we did good, and figure out what we can do better, I'm willing to do. If we need to get, the police department involved and figure out the traffic situation, I'm willing to do that so we can make sure that the community's thriving that day.
And the 25th and 26th, are those also weekdays, or are those?
The 25th is a Thursday. The 26th is a Saturday, and the 26th is a Friday, and the 27th is a Saturday.
Mr. Gonzalez, just for clarity's sake, could you look at the request? There's been some times offered that are different than what's in your request.
Yes.
So your request for Thursday, July 18th was to 1 a.m., but you just mentioned that that's only going till 12 a.m.
We're going to cut that early.
So is your request now from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. instead of 1?
I would hope to be done by 12.
What's your request?
Let's shoot for 12:30. Try a meeting in the middle. Would that be possible?
I'm not negotiating, I'm just trying to understand your request because it's different than what you put in your
Yeah, I would
application.
shoot till 1 a.m. on a Thursday, just because it's the pre-party, you got all the rodeo people coming in. But if, we have to do midnight, I understand that day.
That day, on your application is from 9 to 12:30 with the tear down included, takes it to 1 a.m.
Yeah,
So I think that's where it's not describing on this memo.
yeah, it would be the tear down.
So the application is correct and what he was describing is correct. I don't think the memo has it correct.
I think the noise ordinance one would end at, from what he's saying, is around 12:30.
Yes.
Right, and then 1 o'clock is really the tear down. So really, it should be to a 12:30, not a 1 o'clock.
Yeah, for the noise, correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I gave everyone enough time
Sure.
so there wouldn't be no issues.
I'm going to be honest with you, I don't like the weekends, I can understand, and people maybe expect that, a little bit later. On the weekdays, when people have to get up and go to work, and, that to me,
Yeah.
that's hard for people who, I love the celebration. I applaud you, like your 20 years in business and all of the things you're trying to bring into the community. I think that is incredible.
Yeah, right now I feel like I'm meeting in the middle, because if you go to Dodge City Days, they do it, I believe it's 10 days, and everything until 2 in the morning. And they thrive. And I would like to bring something like that back to the community, and especially getting with, Beef Empire Days, trying to figure out what they're trying to do, get with Finney County Fairgrounds, meet what they're trying to do, so we could blend together as a community to only have better achievements down the road.
And Dodge City Days is actually, it's a community event. It's not a, this is for you as a business event, but Dodge City Days is a community event.
Dodge City also gets with Albert from Central Station and figures out what bands he's going to bring, and they blend together to figure out what works and what doesn't. And that's what I would like to achieve after all of this.
I'm inclined to say that it would make sense to go to offer kind of a happy medium for you to move towards a 12:30 a.m. request, and then see how that goes this year, and if we need it, and I think how that would work next year would be we can rethink this next year too.
Okay, and I would be fine with all that, just as long as on the 27th as our big celebration, if we would be able to get that one extension till what? just because that's our actual big show.
So I'm inclined, to me, it makes sense that, so everything is like equal and we don't have to worry about it. Everything would be sent at 12:30. I think, like you said, the compromise and meet in the middle rather than maybe even that one. So what happens that 27th that night that makes it, is that the wrestling or is that the
The
bands?
27th, we have a car show in the morning from 8 to 3 p.m.
Right, well, that's, yeah, I'm saying like the one, yeah, it's only the late night,
And
the
then
noise ordinance.
The band's roughly going to start about 9 o'clock. We have 2 bands, and I believe there's a 30 to 45-minute intermission between bands to get one band cleaned out of the stage and the next band back up.
Well, 12:30 would be, if you're saying 90-minute sets, then that would still be 12:30.
Yeah, but sometimes there's little things that happen that I can't forecast.
Well, that's even including the 30-minute break in between, so.
Okay, so let's just, I kind of understand it as
Yep.
July 18th and then the July 25th will both be at 12:30 a.m. Those are both
Yes.
Thursday
Yes,
nights.
sir.
And then the Friday and Saturdays of the other dates would all those be at 1 a.m.?
1
Is that?
I would prefer it all to be at 12:30.
Yeah, I think to keep it simple, I'm inclined to be the same.
Well, you,
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the waiver to 12:30 on each of the evenings for the request of the waiver of the noise ordinance.
I second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed, 5-0.
Thanks for all your hard work. This is a lot of planning, so we're excited.
Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, item 6C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from Cecilia Douglas, Kansas Children's Service League, to waive the $50 park reservation fee at Scout Park on July 12th. Kansas Children's Service League is hosting a family engagement activity for Head Start children and their families on Friday, July 12th at Scout Park. The city charges for the use of picnic shelter reservations including Scout Park. Based on a fee structure, there would be a $50 reservation fee for the requested event. This type of request has been approved in previous years, and there's a kind of a schedule of the park fees that were put in place a few years back by the City Commission.
Mayor, I move that we approve the request as presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Item 60, the governing body is asked to consider a request from Alan Shelton with Knights of Columbus to waive the $100 park reservation fee for the use of Stevens Park on Thursday, July 4th, 2024, for the Knights of Columbus Patriotic Rosary event from 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Again, the city charges for the use of picnic shelter reservations and Stevens Park. Based on the fee structure, there would be a $100 reservation fee. And this request has been approved in previous years.
Mayor, move we approve the request as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Item 6E, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from the City of Garden City Parks and Recreation Department to allow the mayor to proclaim July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month in Garden City, Kansas. And this is a national Recreation and Park Association initiative naming July as Parks and Recreation Month. In this year, Parks and Recreation Professionals Day falls on July 19th. The Kansas Recreation and Park Association also recognizes the month and celebrates with its members as well. And we have some members of our Parks and Recreation family here. And if, Mayor, if you'd like to read that proclamation, presuming it'll pass, and then we'll have some of our city folks come down and take a picture with you and the commission.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the proclamation as presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Okay, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the City of Garden City, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people use parks and also live near parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space of popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, arts, enrichment, and conservation education are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, and attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives have designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and the City of Garden City recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Manny Ortiz, Mayor of the City of Garden City, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Garden City. We encourage all citizens to explore the opportunities available in our parks and recreation programs, services, and facilities. We also extend our appreciation to all parks and recreation professionals for their essential service, which enriches the lives of the citizens of the City of Garden City. Signed and sealed this 18th day of June 2024.
And so those with Parks and Recreation, and I think we've got some golf course folks back there as well, zoo, the whole team. Come on up. Item 6F, the governing body is asked to consider and allow the mayor to proclaim June 20th, 2024 as 620 day or 620 day. I don't know how we're saying that, in Garden City, Kansas.
Mayor, I make the motion we approve the proclamation as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Is there anyone here from?
Yeah, I think it's kind of our thing, so we're all here. Yeah, there we go.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for approving our request for the proclamation. We're really excited for this event. Noticed that it was something that bigger cities were doing to just kind of foster that unity and community with throughout their cities, and it just seemed like something that really fit for us. We're really big on the diversity and inclusivity of Garden City, and I think this just really has the opportunity to highlight that. We're going to have food trucks, touch-a-trucks, live workout classes, booths from various organizations and businesses. We're going to have city HR and communications will be there talking about the sales tax initiative. The county clerk's office will also be there helping people register to vote, as well as have an employment booth. So it's going to have a lot of really great resources for the community, and we just encourage everybody to come out and have a great time with us.
Awesome.
And the time again?
11 to 3 on Thursday, and we're calling it 620 day. So,
Cool. All right.
I'll lock it in.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
read this, and do you want a photo, or do you want to just kind of, photos, yes. So don't leave
Not
on
the way
us.
you asked. Yeah.
So, all right, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Garden City has a rich history and a vibrant community that continues to grow and thrive, and whereas the 620 area code has become a symbol of our community's identity, resilience, and unity, and whereas celebrating 620 Day provides an opportunity for residents to come together, foster local pride, and honor the unique heritage and achievements of Garden City. And whereas it is fitting and proper to recognize the importance of the history and development of Garden City and to celebrate the contributions and achievements of its residents. Whereas by celebrating 620 Day, we aim to strengthen community bonds, promote civic engagement, and instill a deeper sense of pride among our residents. Now therefore I, Manny Ortiz, Mayor of City of Garden City, do hereby proclaim June 20th, 2024 as 620 Day in the City of Garden City, and encourage all residents to join in the celebration and activities planned to reflect on our shared history and to take pride in the vibrant and dynamic community we have built together. Signed and sealed this 18th day of June 2024. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, before, report of the city managers, just staff reports. Are there any questions on those? There's no oral updates for that. Meetings of note. Anything on there requiring an RSVP, please do that through the city clerk's office. I think we're ready for 9A, the appropriation ordinance. Mayor and commissioners, if you choose to approve it, it would be appropriation ordinance number 2565-2024A.
Mayor, I move we approve appropriation ordinance number 2565-2024A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed.
Mayor, we had advised our auditing firm, Lewis, Hooper and Dick, of about a 1:30 start time, and also our friends from the county about a 1:45 start time. So would you be opposed to jumping down to 12A and starting with the audit? And then on the conclusion of the audit, it would be about 1:45? And
45, yeah, that would be okay.
okay, maybe close to.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
No time constraint, but you're on the clock. No, yeah. So I invite Teresa Dasenbrock and Kristen and everybody up here. Would you like to take over the? I would like you to take over the. Yeah.
She's got to know she knows the
I'm going to get you started on the. Nope. There. Okay.
Due to the time constraints, I'm going to brief. So feel free, ask questions. If you have questions for us later, Christine, myself, are more than happy to try and address this for you at that time. So I'm Teresa Hazenbrock, Kristen Sekovet from Lord Superintendent. We also have Tiffany O'Rourke with us. She's the manager on the job, so if we don't know it, she will. Highlights out of the audit. The bound report is fairly large. I would refer you to the transmittal and the management discussion and analysis in the front, as they are good executive summaries of the whole audit report and finances of the city. The footnotes that start on page 35 are also a good overview of the city's financial reporting process. So if you get an opportunity to look at that, that framework will give you a better understanding maybe of how they're presented. And then the statistical section that starts on page 161 is a 10-year history of a lot of the historical data from the audits in the past through the current year. So I always find those are maybe more interesting than the actual audit itself. Highlights out of the audit. It is an unmodified auditor's report. You'll find that report on pages 1 through 3 of the report. Total assets this year, including the deferred outflows of the city for all of its funds, were about $409 million. That's an increase of $20.1 million from last year. Over a 6-year period, it's gone up $169 million, so significant growth. Total revenues of the city for all of its funds were $122.5 million this year, up from 2022, about $10.8 million increase there. Over a 6-year period, it's increased $43.2 million, so significant growth. That's based on the statements on pages 19 through 21. And you also see the 10-year history of the revenues and expenditures of the city back on page 164. Was a slight decrease in the general fund balance, but not significant. Debt outstanding for the city at 12/31/2023 starts on page 76 of the footnotes. And there's quite a bit of information then throughout those notes. General obligation bonds for the governmental activities were just over $61 million at the end of the year. That's down $259,000, even though we issued $4.9 million in debt this year. As a percentage of the city's legal debt margin, we're at about 55.14%. The utility funds also have some general obligation bonds outstanding, just over $23 million. That was actually down $2.5 million, and they didn't issue any new general obligation bonds. The limited obligation bonds of about $1.3 million, that's the Star Bond project in conjunction with the state, and so this is the city's proportional share. And then there were some revenue loans in utility funds, just over $15 million, basically the state utility and the KMEA loans there. And then we had leases in 3 categories. Scroll down. Finance leases, $57.5 million. Those are your lease purchases. Most of those large numbers, $53 million of it, deal with KMEA for the Jameson and Dogwood projects. The right to use assets, that went into effect last year with the implementation of GASB 87. And so you have $733,000 in debt on your books at the end of the year for those assets. And then new this year is the right to use subscriptions that was implemented under GASB 96. So that amounted to just over $910,000. Information on your enterprise funds. You'll find these detailed statements on pages 28 through 33. The electric, water, and sewer, and airport have been the major programs in your enterprise funds over the past few years. Although they were all down on their current assets, their net position was all up. So those were good increases this past year. The operating revenues were down in water and sewer, but with net position up overall would be an indication expenditures came down also. And then you invested in property and plant and equipment in those areas in 2023. the equivalent of 2.9 million, with the airport being in at 14.4 million with the terminal project. Looking at just the general fund, revenue-wise, taxes this year, we were at 67% of the total for every dollar that came into the general fund. That's down from 74.7% the previous year. That decrease can be largely attributed to the fact that the use of money and property, your interest income, this year was at 5.2% compared to 1.6% last year. So we also saw increases in police and municipal court receipts and revenues. The parks, zoo, and recreation area was up at 4.5%, largely due to the recreation department moving back under the general funds umbrella. And then we saw an increase in transfers this year at 11.48% compared to 9% the previous year. Since taxes were such a large piece of that pie, we broke that down for you further on the next slide. Sales tax is the largest percentage of the tax revenue that's coming in to fund the general fund operations of the city. Now this year it was down at 72.3%, but that's comparable to 2021. 2022 was an unusual year for the city in that it had a large collection in February on consumer use tax that it doesn't typically get. So, property tax made up 24%, motor vehicles this year at 3%. Those are both comparable then percentage-wise to 2021 also. Then looking at the 10-year averages or comparison for revenues in the general fund, we've broken it down by the property, motor vehicle, other miscellaneous taxes, sales tax, and then all the other general revenues. The blue bar in the middle is the other general fund revenues, and the increase there, I think, is basically, as we mentioned, attributable to the increase in interest income and the recreation funds activities that moved in. And as we mentioned, sales tax, the top bar, you can see it's a significant amount of the revenues. It is down because of that $2 million in use tax that came in 2022 that we did not have in 23. That's what the spike is. Now those sales tax collections, those dollars, if you equated them to the property tax, the last line there, that sales tax would be the equivalent of about 49.4 mils additional tax, which on the average $100,000 home that's always used would be the equivalent of about $568 additional tax each year. So you can see then the bottom line is the property tax has held fairly consistent. The increases are really due to increases in valuation, not changes overall in the mill levy. On average, the mill levy in the general fund has averaged 19.79 mils over that 10-year period. Overall for the city, we've averaged about just under 38 mils. Expenditure-wise then, here again, the recreation department, when that was brought in, it kind of reduced some of the percentages in your other areas. So they may be more comparable to 2021 than 2022. But police and municipal court in 2023 was 37% of the total general fund expenditures. That's compared to 40% last year being 2022, and 45% in 2021. So parks, zoo, and recreation is up to 23%. Without the cemetery in there from previous years, it probably averaged 16% each of the 2 years. The others have stayed pretty consistent, plus or minus 1, although transfers were down overall from 11% to 5%. Comparing the dollars then over the 10-year period, you can see the police municipal court is the highest area consistently. The increase that occurred in 2015, I believe, was attributed to additional positions that were added on the force bin. And here in 2023, the increase we're experiencing is due to personnel costs. The black line, you can see that spike increase here in 2022 with the movement of the Recreation Commission operations into this area. The others have stayed fairly consistent with transfers fluctuating based on unfinished projects and such. Some of the transfers were higher in recent years as COVID delayed the use of your funds for purposes and projects and stuff as supply and demand products weren't available. So those transfers moved out for future expenditures. Overall, comparing those receipts and expenditures then in the general fund over the 10-year period, there's only 2 years that expenditures exceeded receipts. 2023 happened to be one of those years. The other was in 2017. Neither of them were excessive, I guess you could say, in the drawdown of your cash balance at that time. I think, as we mentioned on the first slide, it was 300 and some thousand here in 2023. The other 8 years, revenues exceeded expenditures. The city was subject to single audit requirements again in 2023 and has been pretty consistently the last 10 years. 2018 and 2019, however, it was below the threshold. The threshold will be changing in a year or so to $1 million. And so if we don't have any large FAA projects or anything going on, it's possible the city would drop below that requirement again. This one I would point out, though, take note the vertical axis is in multiples of 10, so that those smaller grants will show up where you can see them. Overall, we had 14 grants that the city was administering in 2023. Some other information we typically try and provide, since we know you're in your budget process. We usually try and pull together the information for the 16 cities in the first class that fall in the range of 19,000 to 100,000 in population. It's based on information from the League of Municipalities, so I will say sometimes that it's only as good as the data that's provided. So when you look at the debt, keep that in mind. Valuation-wise are probably pretty good numbers. Liberal is on the low side of our graph here. Lenexa is the high. So we're going from 133 million valuation in Liberal to 1.7 billion for Lenexa. We're in Garden City at the number 6 spot, and we got 307 million in valuation. Dodge City was in between us and Liberal at 210 million. Debt per capita, here again, that's where it's only good as the data report. We show up as the high end of the scale here. If you look in the statistics section of your audit report, you're going to see that it actually computes out much lower than what's projected here. So I think we're more in the 2,622 range, which would put us comparable to Dodge and Liberal. So I'm going to skip over that next one in the interest of time, Kristen, and go on to the city's levy. This was the 2023 levy that you adopted a year ago to fund your 2024 budget. We are showing up in the middle of the graph, right next to Dodge City. We were at 38.5 mils compared to Dodge City's 38.2 mils. Dodge dropped their levy 5.2 mils last year. We held ours fairly constant. Liberal is the high end of the spectrum. Usually you can say that those with the highest valuation are going to have the lowest mill levy. Liberal is the lowest valuation, has the highest one. Some of the others have mixed up as garden is. We're not quite in the same spot you might have thought. On a $100,000 home, we equated out to $36.89 per month for all the services that we receive as citizens here, taxpayers in the city. So. Then we always say, to get a true picture of everything that's going on with the taxpayer, you need to look at all the taxing entities that they're paying taxes to, because every county functions a little different on who's paying what. The big difference in this graph, though, is that a number of these cities do not have community colleges. Here in Finn County, Garden City, we do fund a community college, as does Dodge City and Liberal. You can see Dodge and Liberal are on the high end overall with the taxes. We're a little further down with Hutch and Emporia being higher than Garden City. I went through that very quickly in the interest of time. But like I said, we're more than happy. We've had the opportunity to go through some details with some of you already, and I think we have some coming up yet. If you have questions that we haven't addressed or that you think of later, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to try and address those for you. So, that being said, thank you.
Well, I just had one question on the sales tax. It was on page 7. So I know that, we have really been blessed as far as the amount of sales tax we can collect. Is there a way to make sure, because, again, with property valuations and inflation and everything else plays into consumer confidence, whether or not people buy or purchase, is there a way to hedge against some of that if sales tax would drop other than increasing the mill levy, or is that really our only other option?
Unless you're looking at other sources of revenue, but those sales tax and the property tax, as you can see here, they're your big areas. So it's either that or cuts.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate
You
that.
just have to determine what the needs are and base it on that and what the citizens want.
Yep. I appreciate that. Thank you. Excellent report.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
the
you.
information. Yeah, so it's very helpful.
We appreciate all the help we got from the city staff throughout the process. I know they had a challenging year. They went through a lot. Did a good job with a difficult conversion and still resulted in a clean overall audit opinion at the end. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 12B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve providing written notice to terminate the Neighborhood and Development Services Interlocal Agreement. Danielle? Oh, I'm sorry.
They have to take action.
Oh, they have to take action? My bad. 12A.
So in conjunction with the annual comprehensive financial report, the alternatives that the governing body has are to accept the report as presented or to not accept the report. The staff recommendation is to accept the report as it is presented.
I move that we accept the report as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
All right, Danielle.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. During the last 2 years, the city and county staff have been discussing a variety of potential changes to the existing interlocal agreement that outlines the duties to be performed by both the city and county as it relates to neighborhood and development services. At the most recent meeting, included a large working group which comprised of staff and legal counsel from both organizations, along with 2 representatives from each governing body. After the meeting, there was still little agreement on how to define roles and responsibilities of a new agreement or amend the existing agreement to meet the stated goals of each organization. This meeting concluded with directions for both legal teams to draft an extension that would allow for further negotiations beyond the July 1 termination date outlined in the current agreement. However, staff is recommending providing the termination notice in accordance with the existing agreement instead of drafting an extension. Exercising the existing notice date does not eliminate or lessen the ability of both parties to continue to try and find a solution for a new interlocal agreement and avoid taxpayers paying for two planning and development departments. If termination notice is provided, city staff, legal counsel, and representatives from the city commission will continue to work with Finney County to try and find common ground through the remainder of 2024. However, extending the period of operational uncertainty further exacerbates the inefficiency and frustration being experienced by both parties and the public we serve. Additionally, providing notice now allows for the city and the county, if they so choose, to prepare the 2025 budget in a manner that is flexible to entering into a new interlocal partnership or operating a separate department. Exercising the notice also places a certain end to an elongated period of operating an interlocal partnership in a manner that contradicts the existing agreement. If termination notice is provided, there would need to be a determination made related to the governance structure of the Planning Commission and a separate agreement drafted to continue providing neighborhood and development services support to the city of Holcomb if they so choose to continue partnering with the city for those services. The city and county have another meeting with the large working group scheduled for late June to continue the discussions. The alternatives before you today are: 1, the governing body may approve providing written notice to terminate the neighborhood and development services interlocal agreement, or the governing body may not approve that notice and provide staff with alternative direction. Staff's recommendation is alternative 1. The fiscal note tied to this item is that if the agreement was terminated, the associated revenue loss for 2025 would be approximately $260,000 in direct payment from the county for said services. Additionally, there may be some revenue loss from building permits located within unincorporated Finney County, depending on which agency is responsible for inspections. This amount can vary significantly from year to year, but is generally around $60,000 to $70,000 annually. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions, and we may have some folks in the audience that are here to speak on this issue as well.
So when we had this meeting a couple weeks, 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
I believe, we came out of that meeting in consensus that we didn't want to actually have a second organization created either by the county or by the city. That was my takeaway on that meeting. So with what I understood was that we were going to go ahead and develop a written in colored purple of an adjuster and a highlighted agreement.
Correct.
That kind of describes the language of what the county wanted to include into that, and then offer that as a presentation. Has that been created yet?
That is what will be discussed at that meeting.
Okay.
I think it's next week
Okay.
with county officials. Yep, that's when we'll kind of talk through those red line changes of the red line changes that they provided about a year ago.
Okay.
Mayor, I move that we approve providing written notice to terminate the neighborhood and development service interlocal agreement.
I would.
Do we want to give time?
I would wait before we could probably make a second, but I'd like to hear from the county representatives before we move forward on a motion and a vote on this, just to get their input before we move forward.
Yeah, I'll invite Chairman from the county, if you want to come up and kind of talk and give your...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jerry Schultz, and I'm the chairman of the commission. A couple of you commissioners don't know me, so now you get to see my bright, shining face. I think the memo should have alternative number 3, do what you said you were going to do, which was extend the deadline for termination of the contract and continue to work with us. Now, that's what we understood you were going to do. Then on Friday, before a Monday meeting for us and a Tuesday meeting for you, we get the memo that was dated June 10th and delivered on June 14th from a meeting that occurred on May 29th, with another meeting set for June 27th. The issue here is are you going to do what you said you were going to do, commissioners? Because getting us the purple line in advance of the June 27th meeting is what we asked for and what you said you would do, and it's still not done. So is staff not being responsive to what the commissioners are telling them that the taxpayers want done? The only reason why I'm here is because this NDS agreement saves the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It supports the duty and the obligation of us as commissioners to be collaborative and cooperative and work together. I don't think there's anyone in this room that wants their taxes to go up, but that's what will happen if we can't work out this NDS agreement. And so this is not about personalities. It's not about staying in your lane. It is not about which method of negotiation is the best method. This is about, number one, the taxpayers' money. Two is, it's about developing a system that better enhances development and accountability within our county. We know, as the Board of County Commissioners, that we are not perfect. We know that our system isn't perfect, but we want to improve it. But we want to improve it together for the savings of the tax dollars that are involved. A new NDS department for us is probably 3 mills, $1.5 million. You deduct what we pay you and what we will collect, and it's about $1.2 million. The third thing that is most important to me is that taxpayers expect us as commissioners to work together. This memo starts out with things that was reported to me to be, in my view, incorrect. The memo is, 1, you were going to give us a purple line. 2, we were going to extend the deadline. 3, we're going to define an enterprise zone. And 4, we're going to amend the agreement so that there's one playbook for development inside the city and outside the city, but within an enterprise zone, so that the city controls the application process, the city staff uses their rules and regulations for development within that enterprise zone, and we get past this difficulty that everyone's been having of which playbook applies. My goal, the commission's goal, and I hope our goal, is to streamline and make it more efficient for people who are investing millions of dollars in our community to have one playbook inside this enterprise zone. The county's goals outside the enterprise zone are largely the same but uniquely different. The major item in the county's regulations, which are, without a doubt, not current and need to be revised. That's on us. We know that, and I know that. I'm less than 17 months into being a new commissioner, and you can't change everything all at once. What we can do is work on the things that we have done well in the past. The 2015 agreement is not antiquated. It's not wrong. It's not the wrong way to do things. Cooperation and collaboration are the right way to do things. So we have some work on our side of the fence to do, but when it's outside the enterprise zone, then the county's regulations should apply. The county should be in charge of the permitting process. And I think that's very easy to red line, purple line, and get back together and make this work. And I know that each of our respective staffs have been at this a year. And sometimes it's going to take us, the elected officials, to promote the method by which we're going to accomplish the goal. And sending the county a memo on the Friday before their meeting isn't the way to do it. 2 is the third option, which was not given to you, which is to do what you were told to do, which was to extend the deadline so that we can continue to negotiate. And the third thing is that admission is admitted in this memo. The meeting concluded with direction for both legal teams to draft an extension that would allow further negotiations. That was not done. It is you as elected officials to determine whether you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And from our perspective, that's what needs to be done today. And I'm asking you to carefully consider the information that's been received, and I'll stand for any questions that any commissioner might have.
So thank you for coming today. So Commissioner, I'm curious, when you were at the meeting, did you notice a big difference between the memo that we had sent that was never reacted to by your commission as opposed to the one that you guys have forwarded? Did you notice a lot of differences or a lot of things that were impasses? Or I'm just curious.
Well, the history of this is that there's a lot more than one memo. And what was attempted to be done by getting the commissioners involved was to get a plan of how we can amend the existing interlocal agreement without recreating the wheel. So that's kind of where we're at on the 3 or 4 bullet points that are left for discussion for June 27th.
So you think we're that close as far as, in your understanding, we're that close as far as an agreement?
Yes. I'm not a person that negotiates contracts in public.
No, I'm not.
I'm not going to do that here.
Right.
But what I think the policy is that it's really important for the city and the developers and that area that's in the enterprise zone where it's likely to be annexed within a short period of time, that we have one playbook. That's the city's playbook. Think of how good that is for developers and avoids the problems that we've had in the past. And I've run this by the folks that are involved in development. It's a great idea, not because it's Jerry's or the county commissions, but just because it's a great idea that we work together to increase what we have done. I noticed in the audit report, look at the valuations in our community. We're $620 million in Finney County this year, in large measure because of development. Some of that development is within the city, some of it is outside the city, but it is important that the long range be that the city be annexing and including those areas. And when that's in the enterprise zone, as I'm suggesting, then we don't have a lot of differences as to what we should be doing. And I don't have to rush as a Board of County Commissioners to change my rules and regulations on land use in an excessively hurried manner. We use the city's playbook for the enterprise zone, define it every year, so that we're not locked in as the developments change and grow. We change and grow so that, as it's been described by staff, is that everybody kind of stays more in their lane. And I think this plan gives that sense of determination for who's in charge of the permits inside the city and outside the city, but inside the area likely to be annexed. The enterprise zone is to be defined. And we renew that on an annual basis. And if it's outside of that zone, then the county's going to be in charge, and we need exchange of information between the respective offices. And that's the 3-4 points that I went in with. Commissioner Jones was there. I was not there.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, yeah.
It was my bad for not being there. I'll be there on the 27th. But I think that those are the things that can be worked out and worked out rather handily. Other questions?
I appreciate that too. And when I was going through the negotiation on the original contract, I brought up the part where it expires and we have to submit. If this doesn't come to a resolution and agreement upon the city and the county, do we have to exercise our negotiations through the cancellation process? And so I think my understanding was that we were advised to go ahead and exercise with the fact that within that timeline that it comes due in November or December, we have that time to kind of fix that or come to an agreement of some sort.
Extending the deadline makes it a lot easier for the county to be more consistent in its budgeting requirements.
Okay.
Because if we terminate, then do we have to budget for this tax increase? And if we extend the deadline, then I think the proper answer is, and the auditors left, darn it, put them on the spot to make both budget and cash flow. But I think it provides greater flexibility for us to extend the deadline. And it doesn't hamper the city in any way from my perspective or our perspective as to the ability to hammer this thing out on the 27th.
So you're saying extend the deadline for the notice of termination?
Correct.
Okay.
Simple fix.
Well, first, I would, excuse me, first I would like to say thank you to our staff. I think you guys do a wonderful job. Thank you for your leadership, Danielle, and thank you for Matt. You guys have been on it for the past 2 years. That's awesome. I think the three-prong helm that you're offering to us is saying that we need to work together, first because it saves tax dollars, is that correct?
Yes.
And second, that you think the memo is not correct. And third, that there needs to be a third option. I think within the first option, the third option is present. That being, if we have a formal termination, a notice of termination, not a termination at all, it's a notice, meaning that we will still have negotiations until then, but there's a hard stop so that we won't have further extensions, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't,
In what way?
because a contract is flexible, it can be amended at any time by the parties.
I think insofar as with a termination notice, it provides staff to be able to know that there's a hard deadline, so that first we do save dollars by not spending so much time on Danielle and her team to keep working on this. That we have some sort of deadline sometime in, is it November, December? That also allows you enough time to look at your budget as well.
Budget has to be determined in July.
Yeah. So November,
So
December is a
we
good
have
time.
to- Do we have to budget this year? Does the county have to budget for the tax increase because you terminated this
I
contract?
think we can still decide by July too, right? Like,
Well, can't you extend the deadline to past July? That's my point.
yeah, so I think in having a notice of termination, it provides us with the extension to go into November for negotiations. And that, within that timeline, we can conclude with a solid negotiation before deciding your budget.
Which makes more sense to you? Extend the deadline so that the county doesn't have to try to budget for a 3 mil increase. Or to extend the deadline and the county doesn't have to do a 3 mil increase, and I don't have to have my cell phone ring off the wall as to why people's taxes are going up.
Well, I appreciate your confidence that we can come to an agreement, and I believe we can too. We've had an incredible working relationship. I think the thing, like you said, that the 2 years that this has been going on, and hopefully now I think it's become clearer. I think that you've stated clearly, I think this is probably the clearest I've ever heard it stated about what you're looking for. So I appreciate you being, with that clarity of letting us know what the county is saying. Hey, these are the things that we say are successful, because from my understanding, I've never really gotten that clarity from the discussions. And I've not been in those discussions other than just the reports back. So I wasn't there also. I know that the mayor and the vice mayor were there. And so, I think the idea of understanding now that clarification, what you're expecting, or what success looks like, because I've never really been clear what that looks like from the county's perspective. So I appreciate that.
I think it's a plan that works, and it helps define the responsibilities. It helps alleviate some of the concerns that have gone on for that period of time about who's in charge. And NDS employees are city employees, and they answer to the administrator and him to you. We know that. So do the county employees. But I think that it's very important that we continue to lay out for them, as the applications are received, who's going to be in charge of those applications. And defining that enterprise zone eliminates that problem. The sharing of information between the two offices, to me, is a no-brainer. If it's all within the city, why not share it with the county? But you don't have to. But if it's outside the city, then sharing of information, to me, seems mandatory. And then if it's an area that's outside the enterprise zone, then the county will be in charge of it. And sharing the information between those responsible persons, to me, is not hard. It's easy. And it helps us, from taxpayers and those that we all represent, from duplicating the cost. And it should provide a methodology that works.
I appreciate you giving us the feedback on your perspective on this. It really kind of helps us drive this, and kind of going back on what you said as far as the commissioners in the room and the chairman and commissioners on your team involved with both the city manager and the county administrator is the people that need to be in place, instead of having information passed amongst other people to kind of get that back. So having that information before we get to the meeting in our next one is probably crucial, and we could probably get somewhere on that meeting.
Well, I understand that, Mr. Mayor, and I'm asking for the purple line right away.
Sure. Sure. The sooner the better. Yeah.
Because sometimes the devil's in the details, but at the same time, fundamentally, I'm trying to avoid imposing the tax burden,
Yep.
then I have to do budget-wise as a board.
Sure.
And the accommodation doesn't affect the city's ability in any manner whatsoever, from my perspective.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, just on that note, I just wanted to, during that meeting, the commission did approve an agreement that went over to the county commission, a service agreement. During our meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
I can't remember, lines kind of blur. First thing that was said, that was rejected. And it was stated that we didn't get back to the county commission on the red line agreement. So I think both parties have been trying to work to some sort of resolve. It's just, I think we needed to sit down in a room with the governing bodies and hammer out an agreement. At the last meeting, it just didn't seem like we got to that point. And maybe we can get to a better place at this next meeting.
Well, I hope so, and the request for the extension on notice of the deadline is so that the county doesn't have to adversely affect the taxpayers.
And again, we've been dealing with this for the last 2 years, so
But not with commissioners involved.
I get that. But
And we're gonna
again,
get it
it's,
done.
we will.
All right.
Is it even legally possible to have an extension for past the July 1st termination date?
Yes.
I believe so.
So is that your understanding too, that when we walked away from the meeting, that there was a possibility of an extension, or that was going to be granted without any type of discussion with us?
I don't remember that conversation.
Because to me, I think that would have been a decision all of us would have made rather than offering. I know you're offering it now, but I don't know that that was something that was intimated to us.
Well,
as
the
a
memo
commission.
says the meeting concluded with direction for both legal teams to draft an extension that would allow further negotiations.
At the meeting, I specifically mentioned that that would be an item that we bring up to the commission. I could not guarantee if that's something that they would go for. I said there specifically might be a few commissioners who would want to just terminate it now. And we'd have an opportunity to talk to our commission about that individually.
So.
And Jimmy, you were at the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Long and the short is that the request from me and the county commission is that to extend the notice deadline doesn't result in any adverse impact to taxpayers.
What date would the extension be to? I'm sorry, I was going to write it down. If I didn't.
It's anything that we can work out.
Okay.
Our budgeting, we have to be done.
By July.
And we're going to exceed net revenue neutral, so that notice has to go to the clerk, as you all well know, and that's the deadline that we have to meet for budgeting purposes. And so, and I'm by no means the budget law expert. That's not my bailiwick. So I just know that I have a short period of time, and granting the extension gives me the ability to, and the commission to avoid that issue. And we'll get it hammered out.
Yeah, I think so. I think if we just extended it, like 30 to 60 day, or is that?
Well, I will accept what we can get.
Yeah.
Because I'm confident after
We just-
June
yeah.
27th, we're going to be down to the short roads.
Correct.
That's farmer talk for the end of the field.
But council, if we do make a motion and approve the termination for the notice, we can still go back, pick up whatever we discuss, and with the agreement, and approve that, have the county approve that, so.
You could,
There
yeah.
wouldn't be, there shouldn't be too much of a lag if we come out of the June 27th or the next week, whatever the meeting is. If we come up with an agreement
It
between
could be
the
on
two
your first
parties-
meeting in July, if you had it worked
Yeah,
out.
and I believe it's a not completely accurate representation that budgets are due in July. Budgets are due in September in the state of Kansas. Knowing how you're going to publish your revenue neutral rate. You're supposed to have a good idea of where you're going to end up. The notice of public hearing is the one with the hard ceiling on it that you can't exceed that above the notice, and that just needs to be done in advance of publishing your notice of when your final budget hearing is going to be. Could Finney County choose to do that in July? Yes. Are they required to do that in July? No. I believe budgets are due to the state now in September. It used to be August 25th. Now I think they've kicked that out into September.
I'd just like them to repeal 79, 2988.
And we,
Yeah, the revenue neutral thing.
another discussion for
That's,
another day.
yeah, that-
For another day, sorry, but I.
Yeah,
said
we're right-
that
we're
several
totally in
times.
agreement
I could have
with-
missed the opportunity with the microphone. to say,
Yes,
sure,
yeah.
time. The legislature is in special session,
Yep, they could easily do it.
especially as a committee as a whole. It's just an amendment to a tax bill. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
No.
Really appreciate the accommodation.
Okay, so the alternatives on the table would be for the governing body to approve, but as we heard, I don't know if alternative 2 would come into play or if we just offer a third suggestion on that item. There was a motion
Yeah,
made.
probably.
We need to finish that motion, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt in the middle of the motion.
Thank you.
So the motion was alternative 1, is that correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Nguyen, okay. Any second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, aye. Motion passed 4-1.
Item 12D, 12C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve providing written notice to terminate the use of space at the Law Enforcement Center. Daniel.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commission. The City of Garden City and Finney County first entered into an agreement for shared space at the Law Enforcement Center in 1982. There have been many modifications to the agreement since that date, with the most recent agreement being adopted in 2000 with 4 amendments which are included in your agenda packet. At the December 19th, 2023 City Commission meeting, City Manager Allen notified the governing body of a newly created committee created by the Board of County Commissioners to oversee the Law Enforcement Center remodel. This committee includes representation from city and county administration, Finney County Sheriff's Office, Garden City Police Department, and a member of the public. Additionally, Finney County has hired a consultant, Justice Planners, to help this group identify a plan moving forward. This will be a large capital project for Finney County and will take time to put into action once a plan has been identified. The City of Garden City and Finney County both benefit from the partnership reflected in the Law Enforcement Center occupancy agreement. Nonetheless, the working conditions of the building have reached a point where staff recommends the governing body consider an alternative site to temporarily house Garden City Police Department operations until such time as Finney County assesses and addresses the state of the Law Enforcement Center. In previous meetings, staff has documented the multi-year history of water leaks and sewer leaks throughout the building, the frequency of inoperable restrooms and locker room facilities, and the unreliability of the heating and air conditioning, and the chronic foul odor present in the building, produced by both failing restroom facilities on the primary levels and the sewage leaking from the jail into offices. As such, staff recommends the governing body consider executing the termination clause in the Law Enforcement Center occupancy agreement. This would allow time to identify temporary housing for Garden City Police Department, administrative patrol, investigations, records, and 911 emergency communication services. This would also allow sufficient time to negotiate an interlocal agreement that would agree to terms for the city to continue providing 911 emergency communication services to Finney County and for Finney County to continue to provide jail services to the city. It is likely that once a new jail solution and refurbished law enforcement center is complete, there would be a need for a new long-term agreement between the city and county as well. Finally, the Garden City Police Department highly values working out of the same building as the Finney County Sheriff's Office. This allows for improved formal communication and a great deal of efficiency through informal communication. It is recommended that should the governing body move forward with exercising the termination clause on the existing occupancy agreement, that efforts towards a new interim agreement concerning 911 and jail services also open up the possibility of sharing a temporary housing solution with the Finney County Sheriff's Office so that their public safety and support personnel can also be removed from the current conditions at both, and both agencies can continue working together out of the same building. There are two alternatives before you. The first is the governing body may approve providing written notice to terminate the use of space at the law enforcement center, or alternative two, the governing body may not approve providing notice and may give staff with alternative direction. Staff recommends alternative one, and the fiscal note related to this is that if notice is provided, the city would need to find alternative space by September of 2025 and furnish and equip that space to meet the short-term needs of the department. At this time, the full cost of that is unknown, but that would be brought back before the governing body once an alternative space has been identified. With that, I'd also be happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion on this topic? Anyone? Is there anyone in chief or sheriff's department want to talk or anything on that behalf? If not, we can move to a...
Okay. You're the chief. You're right. It's your commission. I'll give you first.
After you, sir.
You sure? Well, I don't get to answer questions, do I? I mean, I don't have to answer direct questions with direct answers.
I guess we'll find out.
All right, thank you, Chief. This has been a good relationship for the county and the city. And there are issues with the law enforcement center. And this, once again, is a unilateral attempt by the city to disengage from cooperative and collaborative services with the county. It's not in the community's best interest. It's not necessarily anything that the sheriff wants to have happen. And I had asked the commission to be mindful of the cost. Majority of the prisoners that you sent to jail from your municipal court go to us without cost to you. That will change. And I think that the cost of housing prisoners and their associated costs will be your costs, and that will be changed. What building is going to come out in the end, the sheriff directed me to tell you that he believes that it's in the best interest of law enforcement in our community for the agencies to stay closely together and work together. One, emergency operations center is preferred. It streamlines the costs for taxpayers. And three is that while the county commission, which owns the building, has not done the maintenance on the building that it should during a period of time, I don't like to use movie lines, but it is what it is. And the third floor jail worked really good in the 60s and 70s when Grover was there with inmates with whom John Craig had lunch with. John's a friend of mine and a fellow attorney, but inmates have changed. And when we built the LEC, the designer and architect thought, well, it's a good idea. The jail's been on the third floor always. Let's use it again. Well, that's not a very good idea now. And I'm not throwing stones at those folks. They make good decisions, and this building has served us really well, but it needs maintenance. And your police deserve good working conditions. And we are working diligently to find a solution. And I don't know what that building's going to look like, and I don't know what it's going to cost is going to look like. But it's time to invest in an appropriate new jail that should have the best of all worlds in it, including the ability to not have to run prisoners to court, to have court available in the same building, to have new and better electronic equipment for purposes of conducting those hearings. Your sound system, state of the art, really good, but 10 years from now, it'll be a lot better. So we need to plan ahead and so forth. And so we're not here saying, don't terminate, the world will come to an end. No, we're not. What we are saying is that it's going to take a great effort in order to be able to build something together. I'll take the credit for establishing the committee that includes city people involved in the LEC construction and remodel. I think that's all moving towards a new jail and a new facility. And then we'll have to repurpose our building where we're at. So those are my comments. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Mayor, thank you for the chance to address the commission.
Yeah, so I watch your commission meetings, and so I'm curious about the idea of, like, as far as the repairs. I mean, I know that they've been attempted and tried, but there's not really been no solutions or nothing's worked. I'm just curious about, because I know you spend a lot of money trying to, I know, the HVAC and the air conditioning. I'm just curious about, is the building like renovatable, or is it
It's
something?
salvageable, but not as a jail.
Okay. And so that's why the moving. So do you have a timeline, or?
I wish I did. Justice planners is to respond to us as to what we need to build, what our needs and look like for the next 30 years. I think it would be irresponsible to build something that doesn't serve us well. If the chamber and the economic development folks' numbers are right, what our community is going to do, the city's goal of 4,000 homes or 3,000 by 2030, we're going to have higher demands on our jail, and not because we have bad citizens, but because we have growth. And growth is not bad, folks. Growth in government isn't bad. It just has to be modified and held down and make sure that it's effective and efficient. So, yeah, that's what we have in mind. And Sheriff, did I miss anything else? No, sir. All right, very good. Sheriff would like to work with your police chief and department for the betterment of our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, this is the second, the opening statements referred to this being the second attempt to unilaterally withdraw from relationships with the county. I would just draw the commission's attention to the staff report, which was authored in truth, that there's value in both agreements to the city and county working together. The GCPD recognizes that, the full city recognizes that, as I believe does the commission, and not just this commission, but past commissions. The reality of this particular agreement is that it's a 5-year agreement that provides about an 18-month notice window, and that window is upon the commission. Now, could perhaps, some other arrangement as far as notice and terms be worked out. But given the working conditions of the building, some temporary solution for our folks, I think is something that we need to be focused on in the next 2 or 3 years while this gets worked out. The county's doing what they need to do on the building. I mean, this memo is pretty clear on that. It isn't pretty clear. It's clear on that. It can get colored in any certain way through public comment, but the reality is the material presented to you expresses value in the two agencies working together, expresses value in the departments being cohabitated, the value in us doing 911 dispatch and Finney County doing jail services, that partnership makes sense. And we would certainly be open to some other arrangement as far as the notice, but both of these agreements have notice requirements in them for when things would end. Could the timing of it be such that we change that? But our window to terminate this 5-year automatic renewal agreement is upon the commission, and it would be, I believe it would be an irresponsible staff position to not tell you that when there's fecal matter dropping on our employees. And our police department deserves better accommodations afforded it by the city administration and the city commission than what they're getting now. And that's the purpose of this, despite how it was characterized earlier.
Yeah, I do think this was pretty much put into a clear memo that it is, city police want to work with the sheriff wants to work with police, we need to work with the 911 dispatch. This one's hard to swallow for me just because of the fact I would not work in that condition. I don't know if anybody would want to trade spaces with that building. So if we can get everyone in a working environment, that would solve a solution without an unknown timeline, cost, or whatever's associated with another facility. I think now, where this agreement is upon us for expiring, I think this would be a good exercise in a short-term manner. So, Chief, you got anything you want to mention?
So I didn't prepare any comments, so I'm going to be going off the cuff. But I can tell you that for the 25 years that I've worked for the Garden City Police Department and worked in that building, that there's not an office space that I haven't been in where I've had something leak on me personally. So with that being said, I will absolutely say publicly that I think law enforcement benefits from the partnership that we have with the sheriff. And being in the same building only adds to that relationship and that partnership. It makes things very, very easy to get sorted out, and they can get up and walk down the hall, and I could talk to the sheriff, and we could talk to each other interdepartmental. However, the frustration that I have, and probably borderline anger, is that when it takes 9 weeks to fix a toilet, and just the lack of response. And I don't know whose responsibility that is, but I know what we pay every month for an agreement for maintenance, and it's not being actioned. And that's the frustration that I have, and I think the sheriff has as well. So probably can't say it right now, but I think that frustration's there as well. They're dealing with the same problems that we are. They're dealing with the same leaks that we're dealing with, but 89 degrees in one office today because the heating and air doesn't work, all right? We have to go out and buy fans just to make sure that a space is, we can be in there. I'm embarrassed to bring people into the building for meetings because of the way that it smells. So, and that's not just me dealing with that, that's the sheriff's office dealing with that too. So it is absolutely a joint problem. It needs to be a joint response, but I don't think that unless we sit down and talk about it, we're going to get anywhere on it. So I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Well, Chief, so as a building, is it like a 50-50 split shared, or do we use more of the building, or do they use more of the building, or is it, I mean?
It's pretty lined out in the stuff that you have in your packet.
Right.
There's shared space. Shared space also include, like, we use the jail, so that would be considered, although managed and run by the sheriff, it's shared space. Dispatch, kind of the same thing.
I mean, other than the jail, so I guess, yeah, taking the jail out there, is it, do we use more of the space, or do they use more of the space, or is that equal?
I think it's 50.
Equal.
I mean, it's not one has more than the other. I think we share space pretty well.
Well, I appreciate your comments as far as the great working condition with you and the sheriff's office. I think it is. I mean, law enforcement working together. And I know several years ago we tried to purchase a whole communication system where we all did that, and that never, that didn't work out. And I understand. So I was sad about that because I see EMS and the sheriff's department, the fire department, all in that same type of, I can't remember, CAD or something. But I mean, and that didn't work out. And I know there are with law enforcement that those are struggles. But I mean, the working conditions, and we've seen the pictures and we've heard about it it's been many years. I mean, it's been, ever since I've been on the commission, there's been issues with the building, so.
Thanks, Chief.
Jennifer, can you identify, or Jimmy, whoever's been working on this, the notice requirement, and if not, notice now, or somehow, what might be in the realm of possibility to negotiate some other period when the next opportunity to provide notice or exit an agreement would be, because I think that's from the commission looking after their employees, at least 100 of their 400 employees. This is their working condition now. When would be the next time that they could revisit some alternative?
Sure. So just, I'm sure from reading your packet, you notice there's several amendments. We've made changes to this multiple times over the last several years that this has been in use. You are on a 5-year renewal period. And there's two different periods that matter to you. One is that by September 12th of your fourth year, of each fourth year period, you have to give notice if you're going to terminate, which leaves you in there. So if you gave notice now, you would still be contracted for another year. The other provision is that you get 120 days out from the end of the 5-year period to make any changes to the agreement, which is what we've done before. So we've changed space agreements, we've changed how medical expenses are paid for jailers, all sorts of things. And so usually that's done in that 120-day period. The reason that it's important now is because if you either don't do some extension of that or you don't provide notice, then you are going to be in this agreement for another 5 years, unless the county came forward and said, you know what, you don't want to be here anymore, you can go. But it would have to be something that the two of you agreed on after that period. So when staff was talking about some of these things and we recognized that this deadline was coming up, it was important that that at least be shared with the commission so the commission could evaluate the next steps.
There is budgetary implications for next steps, but again, that time isn't immediately upon the commission today.
September
So if they weren't comfortable with a decision today, they would have until September 12th. If I understood Chairman Schultz correctly, the sheriff, and this is kind of a weird deal, Chairman. I genuinely don't really know. The LEC agreement is between the city and the Board of County Commissioners. The sheriff obviously is an elected official that has, an operational interest in occupancy of the facility, but you're representing that he does not have an interest in, or the sheriff's office doesn't have an interest, or the Board of County Commissioners doesn't have an interest in pursuing an alternative space in the interim. There was a part there where you were talking about, you were speaking for the sheriff, and can you share with me again what that was so I don't misunderstand it?
Well, the sheriff isn't very happy with all the conditions in that building either.
Right, we know.
Okay. So, but from the commission's perspective, is that when I talked with the sheriff, we were unaware that you were going to terminate the contract or terminate and move out. And does the sheriff want to seek all alternatives to how to put folks together? And the answer is yes. Whatever's in the best interest of the community, this sheriff wants to do. And so I would, to be more clear, Mr. Allen, I don't think that the sheriff is opposed to continuing to work with the chief on where we can go.
So by terminating and moving out, you're referring to the part of the memo that says staff recommends governing body consider executing the termination clause in the current law enforcement center occupancy agreement. This would allow time to identify temporary housing of Garden City Police Department, Administrative Patrol, Investigations Records, 911 Emergency Communications Services. This would also allow sufficient time to negotiate an interlocal agreement that would agree to the terms for the city continuing to provide 911 communications services, that part, and then also the subsequent paragraph that speaks to inviting the Finney County Sheriff's Office to participate in the same.
Well, I hope that I'm clear that the sheriff's concern was he had not been apprised that you were going to terminate and move out.
So one of the, I don't know that the committee that you created that has some county commission representation on it, as well as administrative and sheriff's department, PD representation. The idea has been floated that the city would be interested in, as understanding you've got a huge capital project underway, we would be interested in a temporary housing project for law enforcement, certainly for GCPD, but also willing to plan that and accommodate Finney County Sheriff's Office as kind of our portion to the overall initiative to figure out jail and law enforcement center facilities, which we know to be a county issue, but a way that the city could help carry some of that weight. So, anything formal? No, not at this point, still isn't. But the idea, if folks participated in the meeting, they've heard that before, which would include the administration, 2 county commissioners, and the Finney County Sheriff's Office, which has like 5 or 6 people participating in those meetings.
Right, and I want to continue those because the city's input long-term is vitally important.
Yeah. No, this is a huge capital project for Finney County. It's not going to be like next week. As bad as the conditions are there, I think FCSO and GCPD recognize, look, we can't just achieve a level of angry that automatically fixes the building in 3 months. I mean, this is a multi-year project. I think part of the idea is, can we get folks out from underneath sewage, and which I think could also have some value in when a construction or a remodel project happens, not having to work around people and not having to sustain an operation. It'd be great to have more time to mature that idea so that there was something specific sitting on the table so that you could take temporary housing, what are the pros and cons of that versus enduring what's dripping on you. But the notice requirement in the agreement that was signed 24 years ago provides a window that's pretty narrow right now, and also doesn't have as convenient of kind of an annual review period. We're talking a 5-year period. So maybe there's some way around, an agreement that shortens, that it's not a 5-year renewal, that it's a much in the what the parties are going to continue to work on in the NDS agreement. And maybe it's do we give ourselves a little bit longer to figure some of those details out?
I don't think that was a question. So.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I make the motion that we approve providing written notice to terminate the use of the space at the Law Enforcement Center.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I just want to say I'm basing that second and my subsequent vote coming up on the termination, on the deadlines. And then also understanding that with the Garden City Police Department, I mean, we have to, in order to retain and to train and to keep our police department not only healthy, but also to keep them here in Garden City. I mean, I think it's important that we provide them with a working space that is, safe and healthy. And so hopefully, my goal, my hope is that the Sheriff's Department and the Garden City PD can actually have a place together while this other one is fixed and renovated or whatever needs to happen. And if it's a new jail, that's great. But that is 2 to 3 years down the line. I know that's a long explanation for my second, but everybody else was doing longer speeches, so I thought I better too. So
That was the part of any more discussion. So you're okay.
I just want to agree with what Commissioner Unruh said. I agree as well. I think the ultimate goal is being able to essentially do either work out an agreement within the time of the termination or come together for a temporary space. That way we can allow time for the LEC to get remodeled, because the current conditions are just not acceptable. And I think our police deserve better. And I think trying to get police to come to Garden City is hard because of those types of difficulties. So.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Item D, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a 90-day extension to the East Garden Village solid waste collection agreement.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
Mike.
The City of Garden City and Western Kansas Housing, LLC, which is also known as East Garden Village, entered into a 10-year agreement dated May 20th, 2014 for the transition of collection of residential solid waste from Western Kansas Housing to the City of Garden City. East Garden Village is a residential mobile home park consisting of approximately 454 mobile homes This agreement had expired on May 20th of 2024. In the agreement, the city agreed to purchase a solid waste collection truck and 675 poly carts that were being used for trash receptacles at the East Garden Village. The city also agreed to reimburse East Garden Village up to $2,850 per month for a monthly landfill usage fees charged for East Garden Village collection of residential solid waste that would not fit in the poly cars. So they brought in some big roll-offs and set them off, and the city is essentially paying for that service. The current contract has expired, and staff is asking the governing body to consider an extension to this agreement until September 30th of 2024 for renegotiation. If the governing body agrees to this extension, the city will continue to collect the solid waste from East Garden Village to ensure continuity of service while giving both parties time to discuss and revise the items. The city will also continue to pay the $2,850 per month as stipulated in the agreement during this time frame. City staff will meet with the owner of East Garden Village to determine when this current arrangement benefits both parties and how we may move forward. And staff will then bring back to the governing body some sort of recommendation for your consideration at a later date. So your alternative would be to the governing body could approve and extend the current contract agreement through September 30th of 2024. The governing body could extend it to a period of whatever you may choose, or the governing body may choose not to extend this agreement with East Garden Village. Staff recommends that you would approve extending the current contract with East Garden Village until September 30th of 2024. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on that.
So Mike, is the goal ultimately to have them begin to pick up these charges, or are we going to supplement or support in some way, or is that what you're hoping for? Or
Yeah, I think we need to look at the costs of what are we currently paying for, and what are they getting out of it? Is it worth the $2,850 a month that we pay? We, the city, are looking into some roll-off equipment on our own. Would it be beneficial if we did that rather than paying somebody else to do it? Another option would be to provide them with larger roll-off containers and then just eliminate that particular payment. So all of those things would be considered and brought back to you guys for consideration.
I know this area provides an incredibly needed affordable housing, so I would move, Mayor, I'd move that we approve the current City East Garden Village Solid Waste Collection Agreement until September 30th, 2024.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passed. Thanks, Mike.
Item 12E, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request to open a second round of AFAC funding in 2024. Danielle.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Funding for AFAC is established in Kansas state law. And just as a reminder that a third of the dollars that we receive related to this go into the general fund, a third go into special parks and recreation, and a third go into special alcohol. And today we're talking about that third that goes into special alcohol. With few treatment and prevention facilities and agencies in Garden City, past awards have been made to agencies which have provided an expanded definition of prevention based on accepted categories of prevention strategies. This has added some additional flexibility to keep these funds local here in Garden City. Earlier this year, the city went through a grant application process and awarded $63,414 between two application processes. There was $100,000 budgeted, so this has left $36,586 for this calendar year. The city, however, over time has experienced a trend for a number of years where we haven't actually awarded all of the dollars that have been allocated, so there's been a bit of a fund balance that has built up in this fund. The current available balance is $245,960. Staff is proposing opening up another cycle of applications and reaching out to agencies that can help with the following initiatives, and these are pulled directly from your city commission goals. So one is youth leadership engagement, and the other is to support healthcare providers in the community. The proposals will still need to identify the connection between programming and prevention, intervention, education, and treatment, but the goal is that a concerted effort to kind of focus in these areas will help move these initiatives forward and provide some one-time funding opportunities to expand capacity. The Live Well Finney County Board would review these applications that are received if you did want to open up another round of funding and ultimately provide a recommendation to you all for consideration. So the three alternatives before you. One is to authorize staff to release a second round of AFAC grant funding for 2024. You may deny the request to release a second round of AFAC funding, or you may provide alternative direction. Staff recommends alternative one. Fiscal note related to this, there's not an inherent cost of releasing the application, but obviously if we did receive applications for that, that would have a financial implication based on whatever is received and whatever recommendations are made to you all at that point in time.
Are you recommending that we release an application with a budget or with up to the $36,586? Is that what your recommendation? Or
so this is the second year that we've done this or brought this request before you. Last year, the commission wanted to cap it at $250,000. There was a little bit more fund balance available at that point. We did award that $250,000, and those dollars have been spent, so the fund balance is a little bit more reduced. So I think there's a couple ways you could do it. I think one would be to kind of cap it at that $36,000. That's what we've budgeted. The other thing that you could do if you wanted to kind of round out that number is do something, you could do $50,000, $100,000, kind of up to that amount that's available in this particular fund.
Of the agencies that you reached out to kind of initiate some of the youth leadership engagement or the support healthcare providers in our community, were those the only two that maybe fit from our goals?
Yeah, those are the two that, as I was reading through it, I think had the most direct connection to how these dollars in particular can be spent. Cool. Yes.
yeah, I think the $36,000 is probably a little bit. That's not really enough to release for if you're going to do another round of funding. But I mean, my recommendation would be $100,000. I don't know if any other commissioner has is that not enough? Or is that too much?
I have a question. So would there be a limit per request? Is that enough?
With this, the way that we've kind of structured it is, I'm taking a step back to the applications we released in January. So there's two different paths these applications can go on. Up to $6,000 gets reviewed by city staff. Anything above $6,000 is what goes to the Live Well Finney County Board. The idea is here that these would be a little bit larger requests, which is why we've asked the Live Well Finney County Board to review those applications and make a recommendation back to staff. So we have not inherently capped it on a per application basis. We've just kind of diverted it into two different paths depending on the amount that's been requested. But this is intended to be those larger application requests.
Do you remember, Danielle, what the average large request was? Or if you don't, I understand. So for some reason, it's almost like a $25,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it has varied quite a bit. That's probably a good kind of rough estimate, though.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we authorize the staff to release a second round of AFAC grant funding for 2024 in the amount of $100,000 with caps of individual awards being no more than $25,000.
Been a motion. Do I hear a second? I'll second. Any further discussion?
I wonder if 100,000 is a little bit too much, because that's double what that would be a total of 100,000. That'd be an extra 70,000 that's budgeted. I recognize that there's a lot within the available balance of the fund. I would personally recommend half of that, $50,000.
So would that take the fund? So if you take out that 30, is that 36,586 included in the 245?
Yes.
960?
Yes.
So if you took that out, it's
170 left.
The $245,000 in available fund balance is the complete fund balance available in that fund. So that captures that $36,000 that has not yet been spent.
The only thing I'd say to that, Commissioner, is these are grant dollars that really need to be used with. I think grant dollars are there to be used rather than to hold on to. But I mean, I'm willing to make a compromise.
We'll get to the first motion first, I guess, and then if that one dies.
I guess, I mean, there was 100,000 budgeted for this year. We granted 63,414, so that leaves that 100,000 subtracted from the 63 with the remaining 36,586. And that's what we budgeted for this year.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. If you went beyond that $36,000 mark, it would be above and beyond what that kind of traditional $100,000 that's been
right.
identified annually
Right.
for this program, yes.
So when we did it the time before, did we go above that? Well, we said $250,000.
Yep, last year.
So that's huge.
We
Yeah,
went up to 250.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking 100,000. Yeah.
But we did, there was a special project.
Right.
It was tied to
Kind
specific
of-
city
yeah.
commission goals again.
Right, but it was pretty specific.
It was very targeted.
Call the question.
Okay. It's been motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion died.
I think there's a compromise to be made just going straight in the middle. Of 100,000 to 50,000, we do $75,000.
I'll second.
Oh.
Oh, are you making
I
a
haven't
motion?
made a motion.
I thought you were amending it. So.
Are we just
I was
throwing
just,
something out?
I was just throwing out,
Okay.
just as a compromise between the two.
But I think Commissioner Unruh is correct. Like these dollars stay in here. They're going to sit there for another year, doing nothing there. But at the very least, we can offer this to an organization, multiple organizations, to do something with it. So with that, I make. Oh, sorry. You can go ahead.
Okay. I make a motion to authorize staff to release a second round of AFAC grant funding for 2024 for the total amount of $75,000 with no more than $25,000 being allocated to a single project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passed, 4-1.
Thank you.
Item 12F, the governing body is asked to consider and approve appointing Raylene Dick to a 3-year term on the Public Utilities Advisory Board.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you know, the City of Garden City operates 5 public utilities. That consists of water, wastewater, electric, solid waste, and stormwater within and around the city limits. The Public Utilities Advisory Board is a 5-member advisory board that acts as an advisory capacity to the governing body on issues related to the operation, maintenance, and expansion of the 5 public utilities. There are currently 2 openings on the Public Utilities Advisory Board, and the current members are Beverly Schmidt-Glass is the chairperson. Her term will expire December 31 of '24. Chris Law is vice chairman. His term will terminate December 31 of '25. Mary Eves, whose term will expire December 31 of '24. And we have 2 opening terms, one open term ending 12/31 of '25, and that was Ronaldo Mesa's position. And then we have an open 3-year term, John Hahn, who had finished his term but chose not to be considered to be on the board again. One application has been received from Raylene Dick to serve on the Public Utilities Advisory Board. Raylene has attended the May and June meetings as a guest and would like to continue, or would like to have the body, would like the governing body's consideration to appoint her to a 3-year term. So the governing body may choose to appoint Raylene Dick to a 3-year term. The governing body may choose to appoint Raylene Dick to complete a vacant position that will expire on 12/31 of '25. Or the governing body may choose not to appoint Raylene Dick to serve on the Public Utilities Advisory Board and direct staff to advertise over some more. The recommendation is from the Public Utilities Advisory Board that the governing body appoint Raylene Dick to a 3-year term on the board. And there is no financial impact by appointing someone to this board.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we appoint Raylene Dick to the 3-year term on the Public Utilities Advisory Board.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I got a tickle in my throat, sorry. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
We do need to return to 10A and 10B, but Mayor, I think on the agenda, 12H is an update from Downtown Vision. Janet's waited patiently for the last 2 hours. Do you mind taking her item up, and then we'll go back to the...
No, that's fine.
The 10A, 10B, and then finish up with 12G and consent. All right, Janet.
It's a good thing the food hall isn't open. I would have had to leave so I could go work. But anyway, I am going to do just a little update. So good afternoon, Mayor Ortiz, City Commissioners, and I always say and Matt, but today I'm going to say and City Manager Matt Allen. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of Downtown Vision. Downtown Vision this year is celebrating 20 years in 2024. So I think it's really exciting that the board has decided to do some different initiatives to kind of step up our game. So today I'm going to share a couple of those initiatives. We've been kind of busy, so I think I'm supposed to come quarterly, but I just don't get in here as often as I know I need to. So first one is the Main Street Market Hub. Last time I was in here, I told you it opened in December of 2023. It is a retail incubator. It had 33 businesses in 4,500 square feet in a vacant building with a $5,000 pilot grant from Network Kansas. In April 2024, Nguyen, our landlord, remodeled the building and added 1,500 square feet. Today, as I stand here, we have 43 small businesses in that building that was once vacant downtown. Not very many people can say they opened 43 businesses in a couple months. The hub is self-sustaining business and is contributing to the sales tax base. Our store manager is Mariah Magana, and we hired this year a summer employee, Adele Parr. This year, we also provided assistance to Wichita County when they contacted us about opening their own vendor market. We provided them with some contract information and other information to get going, and they've opened Birdie's Co. And so that is their vendor market in Wichita County, and they have 8 businesses. So for a small town, that's huge. Our second initiative is the Garden City gift card. We will be the first digital gift card in the United States in downtown Garden City. This will launch in a couple of weeks. I think this is huge. So anybody that wants to purchase this gift card can download it onto their phone and be able to touch and pay, and that will always be on their phone. So we're going to have a kickoff in about a week. Our third initiative is a partnership with Western Kansas Community Foundation for a non-endowed fund. Our first recipient was Traditions. We met with Mike about, as many of you know, and I hope you have heard the story, Mike is currently battling cancer, and he worked the whole time he's went through that battle at Traditions, and most of us never knew. It came to our attention that there were some structural repairs that needed to be done at Traditions, and we went to meet with him. He established what that amount would be, which was $20,000. I have to say thanks to the community for supporting Mike, Traditions, and keeping a landmark downtown. The community raised $20,000 in 2 weeks. As I stand here today, the fund will remain open until July 15th. As of today, the fund has raised $25,000. Our fourth initiative is one I'm really excited about, but it has proved to be a lot of work. The Main Street Food and Brew Hall. Our partnership with Fulton Founders to bring a restaurant incubator to downtown Garden City was brought about with a $10,000 pilot grant from Network Kansas. In that building, you will see 2 restaurants that will be opening a second location, 2 restaurants that will be opening their first location, and we are bringing something new that hasn't been brought to this area, a refrigerated kiosk, which Roots Juice will bring in that facility. This will open on July 1st. Our final initiative I want to mention is our partnership with Garden City Arts and the Kansas Creative Arts Industries to bring a mural to Garcia's on 8th Street in downtown Garden City, which started yesterday. The design was created by Raquel Garcia, a local artist. I want to note that this year in 2023 and 2024, I have seen several buildings purchased with people investing in downtown. We are thankful. We're seeing a turnover of people wanting to invest, and I think that says a lot about the future of our downtown. I appreciate the City of Garden City for your continued investment in downtown. We will continue to build partnerships, support small businesses, bring people downtown, and promote economic growth in downtown Garden City. I appreciate your continued support, and I urge everybody to come see the food hall. The closest one to the east is Kansas City, to the south, Oklahoma City, and to the west, Pueblo. So we're taking on a new venture, which could be very exciting for downtown. So July 1st, 11 a.m. will be our grand opening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're doing. Keep up the great work. I know you're busy. I know you've been putting your heart and soul into downtown, and that's amazing. I think you reflect on the city. Everybody knows who you are, and that's awesome to have a person like you in that spot. So appreciate all your hard work. So thank you.
Thanks for your time.
All right, if we want to return to Section 10, consideration of ordinances and resolutions. 10A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an environmental nuisance resolution. If approved, it would be resolution number 3111-2024 and abate conditions at 202 South 2nd Street. Trent will go through this full item. The second item is also a nuisance resolution. That one will just do, we won't do the whole discussion about the process. Trent?
All right, good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. So before you today for your consideration is a nuisance, environmental nuisance case, 202 South 2nd. We have a couple of indoor appliances that look to be clothes washers that are located outside and in the property. On a couple occasions, we sent out notifications, May 10th of 2024 and May 30th of 2024 with no response and unable to make contact with the property owners or the tenants. Before you today on the alternatives, alternative number 1, the governing body may approve the attached resolution, which will allow staff to get that abated. Number 2, the governing body may not approve the attached resolution. Staff's recommendation is to approve the attached resolution, which will allow us to abate it. And the fiscal note is any cost incurred by abating will be assessed to the property.
Is there a motion?
I move that you approve resolution number 3111-2024.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Item 10B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a motor vehicle nuisance resolution. If approved, it would be resolution 3112-2024 and abate conditions at 611 Titlebaum.
I hear a motion on this one.
Mayor, move we approve resolution number 3112-2024.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trent.
A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve awarding 2020, consent agenda.
12G.
12G is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. 12G, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a draft of the 2025 capital improvement plan in conjunction with the 2025 budget. Derek?
I talked too long last time, I just wanted to cut that out.
Yeah, you're good.
Before I jump into the item, I did want to provide some updates. I told you the last meeting that we would receive valuation before this meeting, so we did receive the city valuation. The estimated valuation is $294,764,265 for 2024, which represents a 5.656% increase over last year's valuation. If you remember, we had budgeted and planned 3%, so there's an additional 2.656% increase over what we had originally anticipated, which, if we keep the mill levy flat, would represent $285,225 additional dollars of revenue for this year's current budget. So I want to make sure I didn't forget to give you those figures and updates. Those will be included in the next item at the first meeting in July, where we kind of have that budget discussion, commission item, and really talk through all the different elements that are included. So on to the CIP. In conjunction with the preparation of the annual budget, the commission reviews and adopts the capital improvement plan for the coming years. As outlined in the city's capital improvement plan administrative policy, the entirety of the potential projects submitted by departments are reviewed and evaluated by the capital improvement plan committee, which is made up of staff. After internal evaluation and prioritization, public input was solicited through a statistically valid survey. The results of this survey were presented to the Commission at the annual governing body goal setting retreat on March 8, 2024. Through input from the goals established by the City Commission and the public survey, staff have compiled a capital improvement plan as presented today. The projects identified are prioritized based on those that are identified in a goal of the City Commission and then ranked by the scores received from the community survey. Projects with an exceptionally high price estimate, such as the Public Works Campus Phase 1, are not incorporated into the fund accumulation of this plan, but would be anticipated to be incorporated into a future general obligation bond issuance. This plan has multiple scenarios, dependent upon the funding mechanism elected to be utilized by the governing body. Each scenario presents a unique timeline or speed at which the identified capital improvement projects would be funded and accomplished. The following options for the plans are presented as follows. Number 1, the current budget accounts for a transfer from the general fund to the capital improvement plan fund in 2024 in the amount of $300,000. Number 2, funding for 2025 to 2028 incorporates a transfer from the excess funds or the anticipated excess funds of the 0.15 sales tax revenue of $400,000. These excess funds are in anticipation of sales tax collections remaining steady and account for the excess revenues collected after the debt service obligation of that fund has been paid. And number 3, in anticipation of the increased usage of the capital improvement plan fund and a decreased reliance on the city wishing GO bond funds for general purposes, the incremental decrease of the debt service fund in future years would be allocated as a general fund transfer to the capital improvement plan fund. A schedule of the city's debt service obligations is attached, which shows this incremental decrease amount that could be captured by the city. If accepted, the current value of the debt service obligation of approximately $3,382,000 would be established as the CIP allocation value, and whatever balance remains from the current year's debt obligation would be transferred to the capital improvement plan fund. All 4 scenarios presented today incorporate utilizing the excess 0.15 sales tax funds as the primary funding source of the capital improvement plan for the coming years, beginning in 2025. Scenarios A and B remove the $300,000 transfer from the general fund for 2024, while C and D maintain this transfer. Scenarios A and C do not incorporate the incremental decrease value of the city's debt service obligations, while B and D add that funding source to the plan. A detailed breakdown of each scenario's funding sources, as well as the anticipated projects funded or in full or in part by the end of 2025 and the impact on the city's budget is below. Now, I'm not going to read through every scenario, but the attachments also correlate with these paragraphs as well. The scenarios presented today do not represent the only options available to the Commission in adopting the capital improvement plan, but instead represent potential options that highlight the variable elements the Commission can decide upon. The Commission may add any additional projects to the current scope of the plan or remove any projects identified. The Commission may also give direction to utilize funding mechanisms outside of what is incorporated in the scenarios presented. To compile a final plan for the Commission's approval, staff will need direction from the Commission on the following elements. Number 1, which funding sources will be incorporated into the plan? Number 2, adjustment and or confirmation of the current prioritization of projects included in the plan. Upon receiving direction on those 2 items from the Commission, staff will adjust the plan accordingly. Projects with a higher priority will receive allocated funding before the projects with a lower priority. The timeline for the rate at which the projects are completed will be dependent upon the funding amounts available. The Commission will review and revise this plan each year in the budget cycle and will be able to adjust project priorities and the plan funding. Some projects identified in the plan may receive funding from sources outside the capital improvement plan, impacting the timeline of completion. One example of that is the fit-up funds going towards the Clint Liner renovation, and there's a piece from the zoo fit-up piece that goes towards their design of the zoo projects as well. And that was not included. There's an asterisk for the one for fit-up for the Clint Liner, but the zoo one I was notified of after the item was submitted, so that's not indicated right now. So at this time, the alternatives before the governing body are that they may provide direction to staff, or you can hold off and provide direction in the budget discussions in July. But really the two mechanisms are how much funding you want to elect to go towards this and from what means, and then is there an adjustment to the prioritization of those projects as it's presented on paper at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions, to explain anything that's still a little unclear. There are each scenario, so you have scenario A, B, C, and D, as well as the debt service showing that if we don't issue, theoretically in a vacuum, if we didn't issue any more debt obligations, that increment amount that decreases would go towards the CIP plan. If in a few years we do issue debt and it goes back up a little bit, that incremental value from today and that difference would be what comes in. So it may not be exactly what that schedule shows, but the idea is that the difference between whatever the debt obligation is and the amount today would go towards that CIP.
Chair, I think I might have missed it. Could you explain how the scenarios come about, like how the projects were kind of picked per scenario?
So we did the survey. So staff, the entirety of all the projects that staff came up with are included in your budget binders. It's really thick. There's a lot. There's like $160 million worth of projects. That comes before a group of staff, kind of department heads from different departments come together, and they kind of discuss the different merits of each project and prioritize those based on staff input. And then the public survey was conducted where we had a statistically valid survey completed and asked the public which of these projects is your priority. That was provided to the commission as part of your retreat packet. And then when we looked through the commission goals after the retreat, we identified any project that was both a commission goal and a priority from the public survey was the top priority. So the zoo engineering design cost was a commission goal, and it also was the top ranked public input. So that's priority number 1 on this list. You'll see that priority 2 for our fire alarm, this fire station fire alarm, priority 3 and priority 5 from the citizen survey all ended up being commission goals, and so they are higher on the list. Then the next projects are commission goals, but weren't rated in that public input survey, and so we evaluated that those would be higher priorities than the public input, since the staff kind of control element of that survey options was a factor. And so if it's a commission goal, it should be higher up the list. And so that's how we evaluated them. That's why those 4, 6, and 7 from the community survey are below all the commission goals, because we prioritized anything that was set as a goal by this governing body.
So I'm sorry, I should figure this out, but so as far as the funding, we have a total of 700,000 or just 300,000?
So right now in 2024, we have 300,000 budgeted as a transfer. Okay. We've left that in the budget. So it's presented in the general fund budget that was presented 2 weeks ago to the commission. The original budget had 450 or 450,000 for next year that we removed as one of those items to get to a feasible budget. And so the decision before you today for the 300,000 is to keep that as a transfer this year, or to, if the commission is looking at all the options on the table as far as making that budget feasible for the desired mill levy rate and everything, kind of the discussions in the next couple weeks, that 300,000 is one of those levers that you could say, let's allocate more than this, and we're going to prioritize other things, or shift priority and focus on this. Or if the commission elected to say, let's reduce that, it would be a budget savings in the 24-25 budget that we're working on right now. But it would reduce the amount coming into this capital improvement plan fund. And then in the future years, 25 and beyond, rather than have transfers from the general fund as the sole source of funding, we've identified that 0.15 sales tax as excess. A little history there. Last year, we used the excess 0.15 sales tax to help with the airport project as well as the golf improvement project. So capital improvement type projects as well. And this year, you allocated that excess 0.15 sales tax revenue towards the Southeast Park. So following kind of the merit of what you've been doing was the idea of using those dollars and just obligating them, saying we're going to put them towards the CIP plan specifically, and then use the plan to prioritize those projects along with everything else. Did that answer your question?
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion.
Cool.
I'll make a motion that we approve scenario B in funding for these projects at this time.
Second. So we're doing the 300,000 plus another 150,000. So.
No, we're removing the 300,000 from the budget, but
I see.
The 25 budget will add 150,000, but it gets us.
I'm sorry.
If you read the scenario,
removal,
it gets most of those projects, except for 74.1% of the tower, not complete, but it gets most of those projects. But it gives us the flexibility for the 300,000 removed to get to.
Yeah, I didn't see the removal, so no, I appreciate
to get to our budget
that.
for this year.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
When it says for under advisement, if I've been put in conjunction with the budget discussions in July, is this the next July meeting, or is this later in July, in the second July meeting?
It could be either. At the next meeting, you'll begin to discuss kind of all the different things on the table for the budget. And because the due date to indicate to the county the intent to exceed the revenue rate is July 20th, you'll have 2 meetings before that point. So you can make a decision at the next meeting if the commission came to a budget that you felt was adequate, that you felt comfortable with indicating to exceed or not exceed, and a mill levy projected. You could indicate and accomplish that at the next meeting, or you could carry it to the meeting after and kind of finalize your budget discussion as far as an intent of a mill levy. You're not obligated in anything until the August meetings, when you would then, we would publish our notice of hearing. We would then set the mill levy rate, and you wouldn't be able to go increase the rate. You could always decrease it, come down from that point, but you wouldn't be able to increase it. So you do have 2 meetings really at your disposal to kind of decide what your indication is to the county, as well as what intended rate would be published, the notice that goes out to the public. And if we get your direction this time, we'll incorporate the changes, any impact from this, into the budget presentation at the next meeting, so that your figure presented shows, anticipating using this plan, what that budget impact is, and then you'll know what the delta kind of further adjustments needed are going to be.
Personally, I would like to see what other projects instead, like what came close besides the cemetery singing tower. That's just my opinion.
I personally am going to, so we have first and motion and second, correct?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and just say that I'm going to be voting against, because I think scenario A is the better option, removal of the complete $300,000 transfer from the general fund and not putting that additional $150 back into it in 2025. I think our budget scenario currently doesn't really have a lot of wiggle room currently, and that's why I think having that entire $300,000 out and just doing capital improvement projects through the 15-cent sales tax is better for us currently.
I just have a question on clarification for the number, for the percentages that are in the parentheses. Those are funded that much, or they're not funded that much?
Funded that much.
They're funded that much, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's hard to put a peg on it just because the project cost likely would change by that point. But this plan will be something you review and adopt every year. And so if this is the plan for 24 and 25, next year, if a project is funded through another mechanism and it comes off the list, or some project receives a lot more attention and need, and you've elevated up the priority list, it's going to be very flexible every year for you to adjust kind of the target projects, but to identify kind of a long-range intent of where the funding will come from, I think will benefit the commission to not have to try to figure out every year, what are we going to do, how are we going to fund the CIP fund? And so the 0.15 sales tax is not going to be around forever, but it does give an option to count on those funds for this purpose for a term here. That would kind of alleviate the discussion every year of where does it come from, how are we gonna make it work? And that's why every scenario included that element piece. The rest is really, it's all variable up to the commission.
So then based on when you present the final budget, so this is an area you're saying that we could choose to either cut or include?
Correct,
So-
yeah.
So this is just giving you a direction, and then at the final budget presentation, based on after all the numbers are in, we can see if this is actually something that's affordable or not affordable.
Correct, yeah. If you make a motion today and indicate this is the plan can change before you
It doesn't
adopt
lock
the
us in,
final
okay.
budget. The final budget incorporates the CIP plan in its entirety, and so your adoption of that budget is when the real finalization of this plan comes into play. This is a motion to give direction to staff on which option to prepare for you going into the budget discussions.
That'll give us increments on whether to stay flat, go up, if necessary, go down.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. There's been a first motion and second.
Yep.
Any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passed 3-2.
Thank you very much.
If I've kept track, I think we're ready for the, which I haven't, but if I'm back on track now. Consent agenda, there's 3 items on there, so if there isn't any of them that you want to pull off and talk about separately, the appropriate motion would be to approve items 13A through C.
Mayor, move that we approve consent agenda items 13A through 13C.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you. That concludes business items. I think we're ready for commissioner reports, Mayor.
Okay, commissioner reports by Commissioner Nguyen first.
Yes. The past 2 weeks, I've had such a great time. Complete some missionary work we finished up in Scott City last week. We had a couple Garden City kids out there painting homes. We painted 2 homes. We did a couple yards and got bit by a lot of mosquitoes. It was fun to offer that. This week we are in Lakin, and it's such a joy to be around a bunch of young people wanting to serve the community they live in. It is also so awesome to have 620 Day. I think that is so awesome for our community to get together and celebrate the richness and the heritage of Garden City, and also for the amazing work of Downtown Vision. Always growing up, I always thought, dang, there should always be something awesome to do downtown. And year after year, there's always something to do awesome downtown. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we'll have Commissioner Unruh.
Well, so I just want to say thank you in advance to all of the county, county chair who came, and also a lot of the county staff who came today to really, I think it really speaks to the support that we all want to work together. And so I'm also very confident that we can have an agreement on the NDS. I do think that as a commission, we had to make some hard decisions, but I'm excited about moving forward on that. I'm also looking forward to making sure that the Garden City Police Department has a safe and healthy environment in which to operate in. So, I mean, I'm excited about moving forward with those 2 things. But I do want to say we've had an incredible working relationship with them, and it's really our success is because, again, the Chamber had a theme years ago called Pulling Together, and I think we have done that really well, and I do not anticipate that ever changing. I mean, I really see Garden City, the reason why we're able to do many of the things that we do is because we really know how to work together as a county. So there has been lots happening in Garden City. It's several weather events. I do want to say thank you to our first responders. You know, there's been a lot of, not only with the weather events, but also with, you know, some of the tragedies. I am reminded of the family who has lost their home. And, you know, those are hard. It's a tragedy, but I'm so grateful the way the community pulls together. I mean, I think the Traditions example was incredible, where the $25,000 raised. And I think given the opportunity, our citizens, our community really steps up. I'm excited about the way that we are moving forward. All of the anniversaries, 20 years, there's several other anniversaries that were mentioned, and I should have written them down, but I got involved in the discussion. And I also just want to say thank you to the commission. I know we've done a lot of work today, and I know those last several meetings have been a lot of issues that we as a commission have had to really work through. And so I think we're really becoming stronger as a commission together. So I just appreciate each and every one of you. And so that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we got Commissioner Cessna.
Just wanted to say great pre-meeting this morning on water and kind of the direction and creating a plan for water regionally, but also across the state of Kansas. Great audit report today. Always shows how we're being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars that we have, and the great staff that keeps this organization running. I just wanted to mention that there is a grand opening and ribbon cutting to the Garden City Regional Airport on the 26th of June at 9 o'clock. Great front door to our community. Fly local and shop local. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Landgraf.
It's always a little difficult going towards the end just because everything gets taken that's already going on. But I just, in the interest of time, I just want to repeat what everyone said and say I agree as well, but also want to remind folks about Art in the Park this Saturday that's going on, and also remind folks that on June 28th to the 30th is the Dream First Charity Classic, which is the Epson Tour coming to Garden City. It's a amazing tournament just to go watch. One of my favorite parts about it last year was being able to see all the countries represented via flags around the putting green. We're bringing in people from all across the world here to Garden City, Kansas. So it's really awesome being able to host that tournament at not only just a golf course in the community, but a golf course that's run by the city. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Last, kind of fill in the gaps, but I'll echo whatever Commissioner here said, which is, it's great to be part of Garden City in our community. I believe we do have some great leaders, and just community members, businesses that are here in Garden City. So we appreciate their reinvestment or investment here in Garden City. So we appreciate them looking at Garden City. Also, I'd just like to talk, the airport experience was awesome. That was my first plane out of Garden City at the new airport. And so we went to Washington, D.C., talked with Senator Marshall, Senator Moran, and Congressman. We met with them and talk about the wait to see these guys. I mean, if you're going to wait in a place, D.C. is a pretty good place to wait because you have options. But looking around the community there, it's like, we can have that in Garden City, Kansas, right? I mean, so some of their amenities that they have is, I mean, they got water, of course, and we just went to a meeting today of a water plan for Kansas, and it's kind of like, why don't we fill some streams and rivers here, So, but no, it's exciting to kind of just see other areas, and flying out of the airport was just a great experience. Going out, new terminal, the jet bridge is pretty neat. It's kind of like, are we in Garden City yet? Because we weren't used to that jet bridge, but now that we have it, it's an awesome addition. So, yeah, ribbon cutting, 26th at 9 a.m. And I believe Senator Mann Congressman Mann is going to be here. And we maybe have is that?
Senator Moran.
Senator Moran, okay. So he'll be here, so for sure. But yeah, also just like to say that the water plant in Dodge City, I want to say DC, but it's like, it's Dodge City. But yeah, we had a water meeting there. That was great information. If we don't know about water, the plan that just kind of fill the Ogallala water system supply here in the southwest region of Kansas is very important to farmers and the community as far as just their plan on implementing, gathering information right now. But I learned a lot of new things on that. So even though I'm married to farmer's daughter, I don't know anything about watering crops and whatnot or how often they need to do it. But obviously there's a valve that they're trying to control. So, but yeah, having that input from the local farmers and the businesses and municipalities on that subject was really an eye-opener on my part as far as just learning what they're talking about. And so that was a good experience for me. I believe also, just to look at my notes, I think that's all I had. So one last thing, just kind of, we are having a softball tournament at the end of this month on the 29th and 30th. So we invite all of the staff here, Garden City Department, the county department with EMS and sheriff and police and fire out to that event. We're going to be out there from 8 a.m. to about 9 p.m. So it'll be out at Peebles, the 29th and the 30th. So you're welcome to come and kind of support the youth that are fast pitch softball players that are going to come from other communities and just offer that, that hospitality that Garden City always has as far as greeting and offering our amenities to them and stuff. So we appreciate all that our staff does and the community. We appreciate everyone here in Garden City. So with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Drew likes that song.
Yeah, sure.
Farmer's Daughter. Yeah. Matt, is there a way you can get me